What's up, YouTube? I have got this analog TV filter effect. This is a Tox file that you just drop in and it should look something like that. Let's just get into it. So I've made a few different analog inspired effects, and this maybe isn't very analog in many ways anymore. It's more than that. It's grown beyond that. I really wanted to make this make sense and be able to put it all in one place so that nobody has to dive in there for anything, except for curiosity, which I encourage. It's pretty easy to get retro looks, but there's some things about this that are unique, which you can tell. But right off the bat, if you dive into this thing, you can see that this is really just a pretty typical instancing setup using the old school 3D in TouchDesigner. But I am just here to demystify these controls a little bit. Okay, I'm going to turn off all the post-processing, except for this lens distort. There's two main tabs here, and it's just your setup, which is going to basically be how the image is composed, and then this glitch tab, which I'm going to turn off for now. I tried to make this as easy as it can be, but there's this relationship between everything that you choose that affects everything. So let's just run through it. Starting off, aspect ratio, that is just your screen size, and it should adapt to all of these. They're just your standard different sizes of screens you could find in the world, and including a custom one. So this next custom aspect ratio won't do anything until you select custom, and then you can flip it vertically. It is vertical, but it doesn't look right. Well, at the very bottom, your 3D camera position is actually how this is framed. So it looked fine for these other ones, but now I'll flip it back and it's going to fill that in. But that is also, you have this fit outside. So there's this automatic fit, and okay, so like, fit best, fit vertical. Let's do 4:3 since this is analog. We'll zoom out a little bit there. And then this next one is your rendered output pixels. This is the actual 3D render. So defaults to 1280 because that's going to be your free non-commercial version. I have the commercial, so we're going to multiply that and get something a little bit more detailed. And you know what? That does look kind of retro. It looks kind of analog. Since it's instancing, it's making up the final image from repeating shapes. So you have options of a customized grid or an easy grid. And the easy grid is just uniform in relationship to the aspect ratio of the screen size. So here's your slider, and you can see this little window here is just showing you kind of a zoomed in version of how the shapes are in a grid. And so you kind of have a scan line thing going on here. Another way to change how this is, you can manipulate the actual screen size, and these will just overlap, and you get some, like when you really zoom in, you start to see some weird stuff. And like, I might just keep it really punched in so you can see how these values are affecting everything. So I think it was at 0.35. The next thing is like what is the shape? How many sides are there to the shape? So you've got your width and your height of each of them. And then you can also change the angle. So you can get some like tiled looking things. And then you have your uniform scale. So you can kind of scale them up, and they will start overlapping at certain values. And then I also have a dynamic scale. So based on the brightness, you can turn the uniform scale back up. So you actually have some it's going to have like a really small grid with a large uniform size. Yeah, and this almost looks like a living, like tiled floor or something. Put this back to 0. And then there's also dynamic rotations. So both of these are based off of the brightness. It will rotate the shapes depending on how dark they are. And if I take the scale off, you'll see that a little bit. The divisions go down to a triangle, which you can kind of see here. Like this is the one where you can really see how much they rotate based on how bright they are. And then you can, you know, change the angle here dynamically. So that's like an audio reactive point potentially, or just something you can manually choose. So that's fun. That's pretty fun. Is this analog? No. Is this cool? Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. So moving over the glitch tab, there is very first option is just F my S up, and it will just do that. No input needed. And we're not going to start there because that can get a little flashy, strobe warning kind of stuff. I started this with one that is just kind of looks like little kind of like glitchy, worn out VHS artifacts. Your main things here is your maximum strength for these two glitch types. There's no controls over setting any of them. You can dive in there to learn about how I built this, but they're very random. And if you want it controlled, just bring these values way down. And if you want it wild, turn them up. I'm going to turn them both off for a second. You can pulse them whether they're on or off. So there's another audio reactive point, but they're just going to be the same pattern until you randomize them. So I'll turn this on and we will randomize it. And like, whoa, okay, that is very damaged. What happens if we turn this down? Some of them are doing some crazy math. So if you do not like flashing images, this effect might not be for you. But if you like breaking things, maybe this one does. All right, I'm gonna do the dynamic scale. I should have a script, but then this video would never exist because the script would never exist. This green chop input on the Tox file is looking for an on-off trigger. I tried to make it easy so that when you plug in a trigger, it will start doing the randomization for you, but not without turning on the easy randomization. So if I turn this on, every pulse will randomize some value every time. And there's three options here. One at a time, pulses only, and chaos mode. One at a time means it will pick one of the different glitch menu items at a time, every pulse. So it's not everything every time. Pulses only it'll pulse on the trigger. And I'm just using the classic TouchDesigner sound, so we don't need to listen to it. So if you turn them off, it's using the pulse. So like this is going to override the glitch toggle, like the on-off toggles here. Turn this off. Now it's not doing anything, thankfully. Chaos mode is it's gonna scramble everything every time. It's gonna give it a new randomization and a new pattern for both of these. And you can notice these don't need to be on or off. Like this overrides everything. If you want to have them just going, you turn them on and off accordingly. But the easy randomization, like that, is going to just randomize it. And if you crank this up, like it is gonna break. It's gonna break everything every time. Fun stuff. You can turn it way down and it's not going to do that much, but every once in a while it's going to, some of these, because it's randomizing the math as well, which makes some of them pretty strong. And you can turn these way down, and then it's going to only on the most absurdly broken glitches still punch through. Give it a little bit of waver, but like in chaos mode, a little bit will go a long ways. So you've been warned. But this is another fun way to see how the grid is actually made up. Because you can kind of scale this to get more realistic looking patterns. And then this does start to look sort of analog again. But this is pretty intense. Pretty intense. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back down to just pulses only. give you the rendered look again. Just F my S up. It doesn't need pulses. It is literally taking, if you're 60 frames per second, it's not going to update 60 frames per second. It's going to update 20% of your frames, basically. So here we go. Warning. That is scrambled. That is very scrambled. But this is why I kept analog in the name, because like once that's going, I mean, that looks like some custom electronic in a sense. Not perfectly, obviously. I have a webcam pointed at a projector. Let's see what happens here. That is some analog feedback. Oh yeah, so the other thing I was going to say is that if you don't have anything plugged in to this, it will use the tempo of TouchDesigner as the trigger source. So if I turn this up to 180, it will pulse more frequently. So if you have something that is to a BPM, it's not ready to sync to Ableton that easily or anything, but internally with nothing plugged in, that's what it's going to do. So your TouchDesigner tempo is the just trigger. So there's a trigger whether you have something plugged in or not. There's this static overlay. Doesn't really do that much. It's just meant to be like a little bit of noise. Your render, you know, you can try to make your render better or worse, maybe for efficiency. This does take like about a gig of video memory almost no matter what. And then your post-processing is the lens distort. And turn that on or off. There is a RGB offset, which when you're zoomed in, it's not going to be that obvious. It's a desaturate or saturate. And then bloom. I guess I had the bloom off the whole time. So, you know, this bloom is just the TouchDesigner bloom. You can plug whatever. I mean, it's just handy to have in there with analog kind of style stuff. It can be just handy to have. So it's just built in. You can turn it off if you don't need it. The one thing that's not included is there maybe should be an input level, because like this webcam has got like an auto exposure. And what makes this so bright, part of it is the bloom, but the other part is that like these shapes can stack up. So it's like, you can see I turning the grid size down and it's still overlapping in some places, making it extra bright. And these shapes are solid colors. So now it's gonna look a little bit darker. But just by raising the amount of divisions, the image gets brighter. So there's just this relationship between all of these things. There's a lot you can explore. Now my radius is the same size, 0.5, 0.5. That's one relationship. But if I change the dynamic scale, now they're getting smaller. So I want to change the uniform scale up. I turn these rotations off. Some of them are going to overlap. I'm like, that's cool. There's weird dynamic oversized pixels. Yeah, and the best thing about this being in 3D is like how much you can zoom in and get lo-fi but high def at the same time. So there's a lot to play with here. And does this resemble an analog television in any way? Not really, but the glitches are the most analog part of it, to be honest. You know, and if you want to have some control, the best thing to do is like leave one on, turn the easy off, and then just randomize the one pattern at a time. Be like, okay, I like that one. I'm going to turn down the strength a little bit. You know, and that's where you get the control over these glitches. I'll turn the second one on and the first one off, do the same thing. That is strong. So we'll find another one. Whoop, 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 whoop. That's too much. It's like this plus this. So really you're just kind of like finding randomization you like and playing with the string. Oh, and the last thing is there's this offset that can get a little too strong. Even a little bit is a lot. Let me turn some of this stuff back down again. And the glitch is off. So, okay, so here we have this grid, and this just starts shifting one row up and the next down. And this is like before it gets instanced. So it's this weird thing. I don't have much control over it, but you can kind of like destroy the image. Very low values, you can still see what it is. It looks kind of cool with the text. I'll zoom out. So there you can see everything's uniform, and you turn it up, and you can actually, just by messing with that, you can get some cool. Every other row gets offset. Kind of dumb, but it's kind of fun. Can make it look kind of jagged. And then a little bit of glitch, and you got it moving. So, like I said, not very analog, but this has been pretty fun to make, and there's just a lot to play with. If I make an update soon, it would probably be, I started thinking about making presets for this, and it would just undo a lot of what I have going for it. Not only would I have to like rethink some things, but it wouldn't change the fact that there's a dynamic relationship between the size. It would have to be like a preset mode where you don't control any of these things, because I would have to kind of bake them in, be like, oh, these are some cool looks. Yeah, no. I hope this makes sense. I hope this is exciting for you. I worked on this way longer than I thought I would. I have a bunch more stuff to release. The difference between using something for myself and for other people is like, I'm not scared to dig into my components and manually control things, but that ends up taking time. And I'll be honest, I could use some help. And so I figured like, well, what if I put myself out there and offer something exciting for hopefully some money, because I'm underemployed and I'm not very employable at the moment, which I don't know if I want to get into, but it's not good. Any help would be very appreciated. And I hope you pick this up, and I hope you do something cool with it. So this is kind of heavy processing. So I also have, if you're just looking for like a scanline filter, I have a very lightweight one that I'm going to package with this, just called Perfect Scanlines. And if you're just looking for a cheap analog look, like that's the way to go. Oh my God, anyways, we did it. All right. See you soon, I hope.